the journey that changed my life. There are some journeys in life that people forget after a few days. A train ride, a road trip, a random vacation. But sometimes one journey becomes a memory that never leaves your soul. This is the story of the most important trip of my life. Not because we traveled far, not because we visited famous places, but because I traveled with someone who changed the way I looked at love, life, and myself forever. Her name was Alina, and before that journey she was just a friend. At least that's what I kept telling myself. I met Alina during my final year of university. She wasn't the loudest person in class, nor the kind of girl who tried to attract attention, but there was something about her calmness that made people feel comfortable around her. She had deep brown eyes, a soft voice, and a habit of smiling, even during difficult moments. The first time we talked was in the college library. I was searching for a book for almost 20 minutes. While pretending I knew exactly what I was doing, she noticed me struggling and laughed softly. "You've been standing in the wrong section the whole time," she said. I felt embarrassed. She helped me find the book, and somehow we ended up talking for nearly an hour. That was the beginning. After that day, we slowly became close friends. We studied together, ate lunch together, walked home together, and little by little she became part of my everyday life. But there was one problem. I never had the courage to tell her how I truly felt. I was afraid of losing the friendship, afraid of rejection, afraid that things would change forever. So I stayed silent. Months passed. Then one evening she called me unexpectedly. "Are you free this weekend?" she asked. "Probably. Why?" "My uncle owns a small guest house near the mountains. I'm going there for 2 days. I don't want to travel alone." I tried to sound calm. "So you want me to come?" "Yes," she replied. "Only if you want to." I looked out the window as my heart started racing. Of course I'll come. I had no idea that this small trip would become the most unforgettable memory of my life. Saturday morning arrived faster than expected. We met at the old bus station just after sunrise. The city was still half asleep. Vendors were preparing tea stalls. Buses were honking loudly and cold. Morning wind moved through the crowded streets. Alina wore a light gray sweater and carried a small backpack. When she saw me, she smiled. "You actually came?" I said I would. "You're usually late." "I didn't sleep all night," I joked. She laughed. And for some strange reason, that laugh made the entire morning feel brighter. We boarded the bus and sat near the window. The journey to the mountains would take almost 7 hours. At first we talked normally, about university, about exams, about random childhood memories. But after a while the conversation became deeper. The city slowly disappeared behind us. Tall buildings turned into empty roads. Empty roads turned into green fields. And green fields slowly became hills and mountains. Rain clouds gathered above the sky. Alina rested her head against the window and watched the scenery quietly. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Do you ever feel like life moves too fast?" I looked at her. "All the time." She sighed softly. "I'm scared of growing up." "You already are grown up." "No," she said. "I mean really growing up. Losing people, becoming strangers, watching life change." I didn't know what to say. So instead I asked, "Do you think we'll stop talking one day?" She looked at me for a few seconds before answering. "I hope not." Those 3 words stayed in my heart longer than she could imagine. A few hours later, heavy rain started falling. The bus stopped near a small roadside cafe because the roads ahead became dangerous. Passengers stepped outside to stretch and drink tea. The cold wind was freezing. Alina rubbed her hands together. Without thinking, I gave her my jacket. "You'll get cold," she said. "Im fine?" "You're lying." "Maybe." She smiled and wore it anyway. We sat under a small tin roof while rain poured endlessly in front of us. The smell of tea mixed with wet earth filled the air. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. No stress, no pressure, no fear about the future. Just me and her. At one point, the electricity disappeared and the cafe became dim and quiet. People started using phone flashlights. Alina looked at the rain and whispered, "This feels like a movie scene. Hopefully not a sad one." She turned toward me. "Do you think every love story ends sadly?" My heart nearly stopped. I tried to answer carefully. "Not every story, but most do. Maybe because people give up too easily." She stayed silent after that. And somehow the atmosphere between us changed. Not awkward, just different, like both of us were hiding words we wanted to say. We finally reached the mountains around evening. The guest house stood near a lake surrounded by pine trees. Fog covered the hills like white smoke. It looked unreal. The place was peaceful and almost completely empty. An old caretaker welcomed us and showed us the rooms. There were only 2 guests besides us. At night, the temperature dropped sharply. The caretaker lit a fireplace in the main hall. Alina and I sat near the fire drinking hot coffee. Outside, rain continued tapping against the windows. "You know," she said suddenly, "I almost cancelled this trip." "Why?" She stared at the fire quietly. "Because I've been feeling lost lately." "What do you mean?" "I don't know what I'm doing with my life anymore." I listened silently. She continued. "Everyone expects me to have answers. My family thinks I'm strong, my friends think I'm always okay, but honestly," her voice weakened, "I'm tired." That was the first time I saw sadness behind her smile, and in that moment I realized something important. The people who smile the most often carry the heaviest pain. I looked at her carefully. "You don't always have to pretend." She looked at me with tired eyes. "And if I stop pretending, then I'll stay." The moment those words left my mouth, silence filled the room. The fire crackled softly between us. Alina lowered her eyes. Then she smiled weakly. "You always say the right thing." If only she knew how hard my heart was beating. The next morning the rain finally stopped. The mountains looked beautiful under the sunlight. Clouds floated between the hills and birds echoed through the valley. Alina wanted to explore the lake area, so we started walking along a narrow trail. The air smelled fresh and cold. She seemed happier than before. At one point she stopped near the water. "Take a picture of me," she said. I laughed. "You suddenly became a model. Just do it." I took several pictures while she posed dramatically near the lake. Then she grabbed my phone. "Now your turn." "I hate photos." "Too bad." She forced me to stand near the trees while laughing uncontrollably. For the first time in years, I forgot how serious life had become. I felt like a child again. Free, alive, happy. Hours passed quickly. We explored hills, drank tea from roadside stalls, and talked about dreams we had never shared with anyone else. At sunset, we climbed a small hill overlooking the lake. Orange light covered the mountains beautifully. The entire world looked calm. Alina sat quietly beside me. Then she asked the question I feared the most. "Can I ask you something honestly?" "Sure." "Have you ever loved someone without telling them?" I froze. My chest tightened instantly. The wind moved softly around us. "Yes," I answered carefully. "What happened?" "I never told her." "Why not?" "Because I was scared." She looked away toward the sunset. "That's sad." "Maybe." "No," she said softly. "It really is." For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then she asked quietly, "Do I know her?" My heart pounded so loudly I thought she could hear it. I looked at her face glowing under the sunset, and suddenly I realized something. Some moments never return. If I stayed silent now, I might regret it forever. So I took a deep breath. "Yes." She turned toward me slowly, and before fear could stop me, I said the words I had hidden for years. "It's you." Everything became silent. The wind, the birds, the world. Only my heartbeat remained alive inside me. Alina stared at me without speaking. I immediately regretted everything. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "You don't have to say anything, I just—" Before I could finish, she smiled sadly. "You idiot!" I blinked in confusion. "What?" "I've been waiting for you to say that for almost a year." For a second, my brain stopped working. "What?" She laughed while tears filled her eyes. "You really are slow?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was scared too." We both started laughing at the same time. Two people, two cowards. One love story, waiting silently between them. The sunset behind her looked beautiful, but honestly, nothing in the world looked more beautiful than her smile in that moment. That night felt different, not because anything dramatic happened, but because everything became honest. No hidden feelings, no pretending, no silence. We stayed awake for hours talking about the future, about dreams, about fears, about life. For the first time, I felt understood completely. And maybe that's what real love truly is. Not perfection, not grand promises, just finding someone who understands your silence. The next morning, we had to return to the city. Strangely, neither of us wanted the trip to end. The bus ride back felt quieter, not uncomfortable, peaceful. At one point, Alina rested her head on my shoulder and fell asleep. I looked outside the window as mountains slowly disappeared behind us. And I realized something important. Sometimes the most important journeys are not about reaching a place. They are about discovering a person or discovering yourself. That trip changed my life forever. Years have passed since then. Life became harder. Responsibilities increased. Problems came and went. But even today, whenever rain falls or cold wind touches my face, I remember that journey. The roadside cafe, The mountains, the lake, the confession at sunset, and the girl who changed everything. People often ask me what the happiest moment of my life was. They expect answers like success, money, or achievements. But my answer is always the same. It was that simple trip with a girl I loved silently for years. Because sometimes, one journey can become an entire lifetime inside your heart.